With Unstoppable, we really set the ball rolling of the next chapter of Ad Infinitum, didn't we? But, going off of chapter 1, you knew it would probably be just as good. And again, like I've said, in that video, it was a great introduction to the second entry, which I had so much fun the first time when I covered 4 tracks off of Ad Infinitum on this channel, and I've listened to the album since in full several times, and I've absolutely loved it. Again, a beautiful testament to the talent that I found within the European metal landscape, and even more specific than that, symphonic metal, which is a favored extension of the, not extension, but a subset of the metal scene, in my opinion. Chapter 2, though, Legacy, is really starting off well. I mean, Unstoppable, again, like I said, was a banger of a track. Beautiful energy, passion, a great video, beautiful vocals from Alyssa Bonney, as expected. But I just love Ad Infinitum as a group. And again, I love broadening my playlist, perhaps of talent that are fresh introductions to me, and Ad Infinitum certainly is. I'm still in my early days of an embrace with them and their art, but I've really come to enjoy the experience of listening to their music, not only on this channel, but even just in my own life and my repeat listens. I've really fallen in love with, again, another group that, yet again, it deepens my romance with the European music scene. And at this point, it's quite extensive. And to be fair, there's still plenty of groups around the country, of course around Europe, but around the world as well, even in America, more specifically, that I listen to on a routine basis. And again, as I've said, I'm not in any way trying to overshadow existent talents in other places. Like, for example, within American groups, I've got so many favorites, and many of which I've covered on this channel, and more still coming. But right now, I'm in my European music embrace. And it doesn't feel like I really want to leave, because I'm just enjoying what I'm finding, like, every single minute that I listen to more music. I'm always jumping to these on the first play as my playlist. And, in any case, it's just, this is the music I've always been looking for. Europe really does have such an extensive landscape of enjoyment. And I've loved extending Ad Infinitum, a hand as a fan, and just a new fan, and really enjoying their craft. I really appreciate groups like this. I mean, from the sound and even the vision of the albums and the extra dimensions employed with the character of the... I would say it's comparable, as I said as well, with Unstoppable, to what you find in other groups, let's say, for example, ones that are described as conceptual. Many groups, of course, I could reference that are top listens for me, some of which I've covered on this channel, but do have that in their recent offerings. They have that with the history background, again, their fascination and how they've employed that into the narrative, as I understand from other fans who perhaps have been longer listeners than I have and know more of their background, whereas I'm still in my early phase of research as well. I really appreciate groups that have a unique dimension to them, and I would certainly describe that with Ad Infinitum. Again, I'm very impressed with what I'm finding in terms of the European landscape and all these new introductions that I've taken, and Ad Infinitum is no exception to that. And Chapter 2, again, as I said with Unstoppable, really good first entry. Let's see it continue with the subsequent follow-up, no less, of another track, this one being Inferno. I'm going to go ahead and cue up the video for this. This is the third track in the total album lineup, and we're going to watch the video together and get an introduction to this piece first. And I hope you have the same experience that I've had a number of times with Ad Infinitum, and that perhaps you've been looking for talents that you don't know where to look, but they're out there in the world. You just maybe don't know them as well by name. I've said before as well on this channel, I love spotlighting groups that, again, as I qualify, are lesser known. And I use that attribution in primary focus of my social circle. Because nobody knows half the groups I listen to, even more so specifically of European music, probably like 95%. None of these names are familiar at all, and I can guarantee Ad Infinitum is not one. Again, I do keep a very limited pool of people in my life, my personal relationships for reasons, but I do tend to judge the familiarity of artists based on that. And I do hope that to some extent, because of that unfamiliarity and what I sense, there are others out there that have that pull, that you want to find talents, but you just don't know, again, where they are. I hope to provide that path forward for you if I can in any way. And I also just love enjoying music, on a deeper level. Like I've said, it's my favorite art form of choice, and I've always wanted to bring it more in this channel in a principal role. And I'm happy to do that with talents such as Ad Infinitum, as well as many, in not only, worldwide, but even more specifically within the European metal landscape. There's been so many favorites, and Ad Infinitum they've been a pleasure to add on in that list. So, let's build off of what we've heard previously and maybe give you a first introduction to Ad Infinitum through Inferno. It'll be my first introduction to the piece, of course. I'm going to go ahead and cue up the video, and if you're not familiar with the way I format my music coverage, I will have the lyrics featured for you. I like to provide accommodations to suit audience taste wherever I can in terms of ease of access, and if you'd like to read along with the message of the piece, that provision will be at the bottom of the screen. It'll track along with the song as we go forward, and song/video. All right, Inferno. Let's build our library of Chapter 2, because again, it's been an absolute treat thus far. Only one track in, but we're golden.
Can you hear me? Is there still a soul inside now? I hear the echoes of the screaming minds you tortured and left behind.
Quite a dramatic work, and a mixture of sound. Again, this was present on Monarchy. Some more aggressive tracks, others softer, and some a mix. We're getting like an official feature presentation, but it's pretty exquisite. Oh, this is a good structure. Good key choices. Ominous and tragic. It's so serene and peaceful. Good decline riff there. To serve as a transition as well, it's a great carry. Beautiful personality to this song's narrative. Really is so exquisitely written. Oh, that path into the choruses too is just great. I'm really jiving with this, the lyrics and the chorus more specifically. Just, this is exquisite work. One of my favorites probably so far. There's been a whole line of them as it concerns Ad Infinitum. Oh, are we gonna change the key? Or maybe it's just a jump for a guitar solo, but unique. Let's see where it goes. Yeah, we're switching. Great vocals, Melissa. Wow. It's a great conclusion / build-up. That is an impressive piece. I love the way that started. Again, it's such a... Every piece that I've come across now of Ad Infinitum and I've covered on this channel really does have such a wonderful entry to it, and that's no different as it concerns Inferno. That's just beautiful, and the scope of the vision, not only, again, with a very high-quality video, as, you know, with the credits, and I'm not familiar with, let me see, Vincent what's his name? Vincent de Valois? Not exactly sure. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing. Maybe I'll keep that name in mind. For those of you who follow this channel, I do tend to cover cinema as well and primary focus. And that's why I founded this channel on. Even though, again, like I said, I've always wanted to bring music on in a grander role, and I have definitely started at this point, made serious headway in that vision and ambition. I've definitely succeeded thus far, and I'm so happy to bring it again into a much more prominent spotlight here. It's the art form I've always wanted to talk about. But maybe Vincent de Valois, he's done some other filming ventures that I have to take a look into. Maybe some other music videos as well from other groups. It's quite an elegant piece. The lyrics really captivate my attention. Again, those chorus sections, and balanced with such a beautiful tune on both sides. I thought the conclusion as well as switching the key. I've spoken before, in context as well, the Ad Infinitum. I did mention this on Live Before You Die. There was also a key change there towards the end. And I've said on a selective basis, it might work for me, it might not. It depends on the work, it depends on how good the transition is. It also depends perhaps on the magnitude of the change itself and how good it works in a conclusion role. And they really varied that one. I mean, again, you had that whole transition to take you in with the guitar solo, which is also, I think, a good pathway forward. And again, it puts it into, it gives it a nice anticipation where it's not too disruptive, or where it feels like you're left in this grieving space of how the track originally began. You're kind of like, well, I'd love to return to that vision. I think that kind of would have been cool, actually, kind of return to that after the jump. But, I mean, that's just my opinion. I'm happy with it either way. I think it's a beautiful piece in both measures. But again, that end, the styling of the key change is potent enough to be like this magnanimous fanfare, where it feels like that's the crescendo point. But the entire piece, again, is beautifully constructed. The softer opening, which, again, Ad Infinitum does have a varied style in certain regards to their pieces, and some tracks theme more on the softer, and others are a little more aggressive. Or some tracks are a bit of a mixture. And in this case, it's a blend. But the introduction is soft. It's more of a ballad piece. And it's so smooth, so that working into that maybe it's just a game for you versus then launching into the chorus, it was, quite a switch, but it had such an even flow. But those chorus sections on the lyrics, I mean, the entire construction of the song, too, is beautifully written as in its, totality, but those choruses really caught my attention. Maybe, again, like I've said, Ad Infinitum just have that historical attribute to them, and they blend their music with a sense of European history. They might have said French history specifically, but I think you could say, to be on the safe side, history more broadly. But there is a narrative vision that keeps the entire album moving forward in grand focus. But you can look at some of their pieces, and even, like I've said before, music is such a unique art form and what you can siphon from it in terms of your analysis. Sometimes you keep tracks, and of course, keep the track contained its original vision, but maybe you can interpret it certain ways, or maybe it speaks to you in what you've been through in life, or just where you're sitting at in your present circumstances in a different vision than it would others, right? Music is very subjective in how it comes to, it impacts people's lives. It certainly has been for me. It's part of the reason, as I've said, music is such a favorite art form. Music has been, this is something I've acknowledged for a long time, music for me has been closer in my life than even people have. It's always felt like this friendly presence versus perhaps when people were, to speak kindly, a bit more of a disruptive obstacle or challenge. Music never had an adversarial relationship with me. I always felt like I could be in a sense of communion with and fellowship with something that understood me and was there. And even as I read this song, like I said, music is open to interpretation. Maybe you don't see the chorus this way, but I read those, the way it's written, is how can you stand the presence of the devil's eyes? So much imagery there, too. It's a wonderful piece. Again, the poetry of the song is excellent. I mean, if you were strictly looking at this from a writing perspective, and it wasn't being accompanied by a video or a song, it'd be a wonderful piece of writing. Always dreaming of greatness, but you're just a simple man forsaken by the angels, staring at the gates of the Inferno. It's such a beautiful line. Oh, and I find it inspirational. I kind of find myself in that. I don't want to in any way come across like I'm snooty when I say this, but I've always been sort of that aggrieved visionary, where it's like you work in the means of, your humanity, but still your ambitions take you so far. Maybe even further than you can physically go, but I do find myself in that place quite a bit. God, it's so beautiful. I love this piece even the more I think about it. Easy repeat listen. Another favorite of mine, probably one of my favorites from them, actually. It's such a dynamic work. I hope you feel the same way. And I'd love to perhaps hear what you maybe gleaned from this piece as well, if you do have that vision as you hear the lyrics and maybe what it speaks to you. It's just, every time I look back on that section, it's so beautiful when it's written. It's really touching, and even, beyond that, I would say, I'm sure in subsequent listens, and this has been the case in other songs I've listened to, sometimes it's hard to do a fresh take because you can't fully appreciate the vision, because sometimes songs require more of a systematic pattern of listens to better understand how it applies to you. And there's been many videos of music that I've covered where I've, gotten to the editing stage or I finished recording. And I'm like, and I listen to the song again and I'm like, I'm kind of aggrieved I didn't notice this the initial time because it would have been a great message to talk about. Let's say specifically to European talent, Dead by April. Every track I've covered, I've had that feeling where it's like, I love the way this is written. I love the piece and I express as much, when I'm covering it because that really is my takeaway. But then I listen to it again and I'm like, I didn't even take into account some of the meaning of this piece and the way it was speaking to my life and what I've been through. That would have been a great, point of discussion. I do like talking about the humanity of music, and that certainly is a trait to it, and it's the reason, again, one of the many reasons I appreciate music so much. But I'd love to hear if you feel so inclined to disclose your perspective at all below what you feel about this song. Does it touch you in any way beyond just being a fascinating work of art? Another fitting entry from Ad Inferno at this point. Or not Ad Inferno, Ad Infinitum. Let me know what your thoughts are down below, as well as perhaps your angle, right? Are you a new-time listener, this is your first introduction, or have you been an Ad Infinitum fan for a long time? I'd love to gauge interest, again, from whatever perspective that happens to be. And I'd love to feel at least successful in bringing in new fans, to some degree if I can, because again, as I've said, I've loved the European landscape myself. But I would love it even more if I get like half the people in my life to actually enjoy it with me. Again, my artistic interests, especially in the music scene, do put me in more of an isolationist space. But I don't mind if a talent warrants it. And I would say if Ad Infinitum and many of the groups I've come across in the European landscape, it's been beautiful to get to know many talents out there that perhaps are seldom mentioned in my circles. And, if it ever does occur, and it has in the past with some groups I've covered, to find community of other people, that have the same interests that I do, where perhaps I look at my personal circles and I see no relevance. Never say never, but it's a challenge to get, it feels like I'm swimming upstream to get a lot of people that I know to get interest in some of the artists I listen to, and it shouldn't be that hard. I mean, music is subjective and not everybody's a metal fan, but I'm like, Ad Infinitum can speak to you even if perhaps you're not, a metal person per se, and that's not your primary music interest to focus. I mean, I think they do have a broad appeal. If you're really into symphonies, I think that would be an attractive point. But I do like finding fans when it is made clear to me that, where they are. And I have met some. And in the course of Ad Infinitum, it's been the same. I love that about music, how it can forge new relationships. Right, with people perhaps you didn't know are out there that have the same interests as you in terms of your music and artistic tastes. And I'd say definitely, as I said, for Ad Infinitum, routinely, I'm always satisfied. And Inferno, easy repeat listen, and it's a beautiful ballad. Absolutely love this song. I can't wait to hear the progression of Legacy going forward of 2 more singles to add on in terms of the course of what I'm covering on this channel, but I'm just so impressed with this group. And Inferno as well is just, it's going to be an immediate favorite. It already is, but I'm sure it'll only build more with time. It's a great piece. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.